I drove 4 hours for my nephew's baptism. When I arrived, my sister was waiting. She stepped in front of me and said, Let's not cause a scene. It's better if you leave." I just handed her the gift envelope silently, turned around, and left. 10 minutes later, she opened it empty. A note inside read, "Check your joint account." The screaming started before I even left the parking lot. I drove for hours thinking I was going to be one of the most important guests there. Not because I needed the attention. Honestly, I hate that kind of spotlight, but because I earned it, Jenna wouldn't have gotten through the last year without me. When the mortgage company started calling, who wired back $3,000 the same day? When her husband lost his job and their utilities got shut off for 3 days, who paid to turn the lights and heat back on when she had that hospital bill she swore insurance would cover? Who handled it? Me. Every time. So yeah, I thought I'd be welcomed with a smile, maybe even a thank you. It was her son's baptism, and I showed up looking like I belonged in the front pew next to the godparents. I even put a new card and envelope in my jacket pocket before I left home that morning. What she thought was going to be another fat check from me. 1:14. The church was huge, shiny, and packed. I pulled into the lot just before the ceremony started, parked away from the crowd, and stepped out of the car, straightening my blazer. Jenna was already outside. I should have known something was off. She wasn't greeting guests or helping people inside. She was just standing there, arms crossed, looking straight at me like she'd been waiting. She walked up like she was on a schedule. No smile. No, "Hey, I'm glad you came." She just said it flat, like she'd been rehearsing it. "Let's not cause a scene. It's better if you leave." I stared at her for a second, thinking maybe I misheard, that maybe she was going to follow it up with a joke or say someone inside had CO or something ridiculous. But no, she stood there like a bouncer outside a club I didn't belong to. I didn't argue. I just reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and handed it to her. Then I turned around and walked back to the car without saying a single word. She probably thought I was sulking, like I'd sit there and mope about not being allowed in. Truth was, I didn't care about the event anymore. I cared about what came next. I sat in my car, engine off, staring straight ahead at nothing. There were people laughing somewhere behind me, walking toward the entrance. I wasn't even listening. I was thinking about how long it took me to wake up to all of it, how long I'd let Jenna play this game with our family. She used me again and again, and our parents backed her every time. 10 minutes later, I heard the side door slam open. She came flying out, heels clicking, holding the envelope like it had burned her hands. She was shouting into her phone, pacing, furious. I knew exactly what she'd seen. Inside the envelope was no check, just a plain piece of paper that said, "Check your joint account." The one we'd been using as a buffer for emergencies, the one I funded, and she drained. That morning, I'd moved every cent into a private account, set up a new savings, changed passwords, locked her out completely. She had finally hit the limit. She was still yelling into her phone when my dad's truck pulled in. That made me laugh quietly. She called him the second she read that note. They were about to circle me like vultures, and I knew it. But I wasn't going to move. I wanted them to come. I wanted them to look me in the face and try the same guilt trips and manipulations I'd been swallowing since I was a teenager. I sat there calm as ever while the chaos rolled in. They had no idea what kind of day I had planned for them. My dad pulled up like he owned the place, tires screeching a bit as he braked too fast. His old Chevy was half over the parking lines, engine still running. I watched him from the car, arms crossed, window half cracked. I didn't flinch. Mom stepped out on the passenger side, already pointing toward me like she was part of a search team. Jenna waved them over dramatically, yelling something I couldn't hear, but didn't need to. Her whole posture said, "Evict him." From where I sat, it was almost funny. They marched up to my car together. My dad in the lead. Jenna 2 steps behind like this was some courtroom drama, and he was her legal defense. Dad leaned in, voice low, like he didn't want to cause a scene, which was ironic coming from the family that practically thrived on them. "You're really going to pull this stunt today on your nephew's baptism?" I didn't respond right away, just looked at all 3 of them. Mom's arms were folded. Jenna was fake crying, and Dad looked like he was waiting for me to explain why the sky was blue. I said calmly. I handed her an envelope at a family event. "Isn't that what people do at baptisms?" Mom snapped. "Don't be a smartass, Lisa. You emptied the joint account. Jenna has bills due. She said she was counting on that money to pay the mortgage this week. What were you thinking?" I kept my eyes on Jenna. She didn't say a word, just stood there, lips tight, like she couldn't believe this was happening. The funny part was she actually could believe it. That's why she ran outside 10 minutes after opening the envelope. She knew exactly why I did it. What she didn't expect was that I'd go through with it. I let the silence stretch a bit longer before I reached into the glove compartment, pulled out a folded piece of paper, held it up just long enough for them to see the bold numbers. $4,000. The real check. I never shredded it. I brought it with me. "You were going to give her that?" My mom looked like I just waved a winning lottery ticket in her face. That was the plan. Yeah. If she hadn't told me to leave the second I showed up. Jenna took a step forward. "You seriously came all the way here to punish me?" "No, I came here to celebrate your son. I brought a gift. You told me to leave, so I left. And this?" "What? This is your revenge?" She held up the envelope again like it was a weapon. Mom was nodding beside her, already shifting gears from outraged to disappointed. "Lisa, this is childish. You're putting money over family." That's when I realized I'd heard this script a dozen times before. Whenever Jenna did something thoughtless, they circled the wagons. When I stepped back, I was the selfish one. When I didn't offer money fast enough, I was holding a grudge. They never asked how much I'd already given. Never once asked how it affected me. Jenna crossed her arms. "At least give me access back to the account, even if there's nothing in it now." Mom jumped on that quick. "That's reasonable, Lisa. You can't just freeze her out completely." I looked at all of them. "I'll think about it." I shouldn't have said that. The moment it left my mouth, I knew I had made a mistake because in this family, "I'll think about it" wasn't a boundary. It was blood in the water. They were going to keep coming. And I was just getting started pulling back. They didn't leave after I said I'd think about it. That was their invitation to press harder, and they took it. The 3 of them stood there, just off to the side of my car, whispering like teenagers in trouble. I rolled up my window halfway and turned the air on, letting them stand there and stew in their little circle. Jenna kept glancing over at me like she expected I'd lower the window again, hand her the check, say I was sorry, like she was waiting for me to cave the way I always did. But nothing about me that day was soft. I just stared forward, hands on the steering wheel, waiting them out. Eventually, she turned and stormed back toward the church doors, heels clacking like she wanted everyone to hear how mad she was. Dad said something to Mom before he followed her. Mom lingered a little longer, gave me this tired look, the kind she always used when she thought I'd let the family down. Then she turned and left, too. I waited another 5 minutes, then started the car and drove off. Not home. Not yet. I just needed to not be seen. I ended up at a strip mall 5 minutes away, parked in front of a grocery store, grabbed a coffee I didn't need, and sat there watching a couple argue over a parking spot. That's when it hit me. Something I hadn't thought about in months. The car. The silver 2011 Honda Civic I'd driven for nearly 8 years. I gave it to Jenner and her husband last year when they were down to one car after his little accident. I remember the conversation clear as day. He was apologizing. Jenner was crying and I said, screw it. Just take it. I was planning to sell it, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time. Family needs help. You help. Except it was never treated like a loan or even a gift with gratitude. It just became theirs overnight. No questions asked. No title transfer. I kept paying the insurance for a few months before I realized they hadn't bothered to get their own coverage. That's when I took it off my policy, and still not a word from either of them. I looked it up in my documents folder on my phone, registered under my name. No lien, no transfer, still legally mine. That's all I needed to know. I called the towing company I'd used once before when a neighbor parked in my assigned space for 2 straight weeks. Gave them the license plate number, told them the make, model, and exactly where it was likely parked behind the church, small lot near the dumpsters where Jenner and her husband always parked when they didn't want their car seen by the front crowd. Guy on the phone said it would be about 45 minutes. I gave him my info and told him to call me when it was done. Then I just sat there sipping coffee that had gone cold, scrolling through my messages, rereading old texts from Jenner, asking for money, never once offering to pay anything back. I thought I'd feel bad. I didn't. 40 minutes later, my phone buzzed. They had the car towed without incident. Already on the way to the impound lot, where it would sit under my name until I figured out what to do with it. Back at the church, I imagined Jenna still smiling and mingling, completely unaware her husband's ride home was being hooked and driven away. That was about to be her second surprise of the day. And this time, she wouldn't have anyone else to blame. I stayed in that parking lot longer than I needed to. Not because I was stuck. I just wanted to watch the silence. No buzzing phone, no furious texts, no dramatic voicemails. It was quiet in a way it hadn't been in a long time. I was thinking about heading home when I opened Facebook just out of habit. That's when I saw Jenner's post, a full album already up. The baptism, her in a pale blue dress, their baby in that too big white outfit with lace that looked like it belonged in a costume shop, smiling in every shot. My parents standing proud beside her like nothing had happened. The caption read, "Grateful for the love, the faith, and the people who show up when it matters." Nice little jab there at me. I almost laughed, but something caught my attention. The last photo had stopped floating. I refreshed. The album stalled. The group photo she'd captioned, "The whole family," disappeared mid-upload. Only a few photos remained now, like the rest had been ripped out of a scrapbook. The caption was cut off, too, like she had stopped typing mid-sentence. I kept refreshing, but the post didn't change. That's when I knew something had happened. Before I could even guess what it was, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I don't answer those, but I had a feeling. I picked up. It was Jenner's husband. He didn't waste time. "Where the hell is the car?" I told him straight. "It's still registered in my name." I gave it to you because you needed it, but it was never yours. And considering how today went, I figured it was time I took it back. He didn't raise his voice. Not yet. Just asked how I could do that on the day of my nephew's baptism. How I could leave them with no ride, stranded with a baby. But then he said something that stopped me cold. Jenna told everyone you gave her the account. Said it was a gift. That it was hers. Now I was silent. He went on. Apparently, she's been telling people you gave her access to the account as a way to make up for missing the baby shower. She said you set it up for her, that you wanted her to have something stable since you weren't involved. My parents believed it. She's been building that narrative for months. That's why your mom always reacts like you're the one crossing lines when you bring up boundaries. Why your dad told you you had no right to freeze her out. Jenner had painted this whole picture of me as the distant sister trying to buy back guilt. And they all bought it. I hung up without saying another word. I drove straight to the bank. I sat down with a rep, showed my ID, and said I wanted the joint account closed immediately. I wanted her card deactivated, the account flagged for any suspicious activity, and a letter of closure mailed to her address. I could have done it weeks ago, but I wanted to believe she was just careless, not manipulative. I was wrong. She knew exactly what she was doing. As the teller processed it, I remembered something else. Jenna's husband had posted about a job interview earlier in the week. I checked LinkedIn. The job was across town. Without that car, without the account, they were stuck. I left the bank with a printed statement confirming the closure. It felt like taking off a weight I'd been carrying for years without noticing. For a moment, the silence returned, peaceful again. But I knew it wouldn't last. They were going to come after me now. Not just with guilt or yelling. They were going to come begging. The silence didn't just end. It shattered. I woke up to my phone buzzing non-stop. 4 missed calls. 3 voicemails. All before 7 a.m. First was Mom, then Dad, then Jenna twice. The kind of timing that tells you they were sitting together deciding who'd try first. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I didn't need to. The text filled in the blanks quickly enough. Lisa, we need to talk. This is serious. Please don't ignore us. I have a baby. I can't get to work. Please don't do this. You're not thinking straight. This isn't you. At least give access back to the account until Friday. Please, just until Friday. The last one came from Jenner, and it was a screenshot of her bank account overdrawn by $217. Below, it was a crying emoji and a picture of the baby sitting on the living room floor in a diaper. Like she thought that would seal the deal. The same trick she always used. Pity, then pressure. An hour later, Mom called again. This time I picked up. Not because I wanted to hear it, but because I knew if I didn't, they'd just keep calling. She didn't even say hello. Are you really doing this to your sister? That was her opener. Not how are you? Not let's talk. Just accusation. She went on said Jenner was humiliated that she had to borrow a ride from a neighbor to get to work, that they didn't have enough gas money now, that she was crying all night, that the stress was dangerous with a baby around. She said she didn't understand how I could go from being the most generous one in the family to suddenly acting like a stranger. Then she dropped the line she'd been saving. Your father and I think maybe you should talk to someone. This kind of behavior. It's not like you. There it was. The shift. When guilt didn't work, they pivoted to suggesting something was wrong with me. Like setting boundaries after years of being used was a symptom of mental instability. I stayed calm. I told her I was fine. That I had simply decided not to be taken advantage of anymore. That I didn't owe Jenner or anyone endless money just because I didn't have a kid. And then just when I thought we might end the call in silence, she said something that stuck. If this is about the car, you got it back. But you can't punish a mother like this. That's your nephew. It wasn't about the car. Not really. It was about how easy it was for them to rewrite the story, to make me the villain the second I stopped giving. But they didn't want to hear that. They wanted access back to the account. And they were going to squeeze every emotional pressure point to get it. That afternoon, while I was working from home, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find the Honda parked across my driveway. No one standing there, just the car and a wrinkled envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. Inside it was a single sheet of paper that read, "You want control? Fine, take it." No keys, no explanation, just drama delivered by vehicle. They'd clearly gone to the impound lot, paid to get it back, then left it at my place like they were throwing a tantrum. What they didn't know is that I still had the spare key in my drawer. I walked over, unlocked it, and drove it around to the back. I didn't even bother texting them. Later that night, Jenna called again, crying this time, full meltdown mode. She said her job was on the line, that she couldn't afford to miss another shift, that everything was falling apart. She said the account was all she had left to get by this week. Just a few days, just until Friday. Her voice broke like she was holding the baby in one arm and the phone in the other. I didn't yell. I didn't lecture. I just said, I'll think about it. And I knew even before she thanked me that I'd made another mistake. Because to Jenna, those 4 words meant the door was still open. That her grip wasn't broken, just weakened. That night, I barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be another message, a new plea, a fresh guilt trip. They weren't done. They were just warming up. I stared at the last message for over an hour before sending it. No edits, no backspaces. Just one line that had taken me years to arrive at. I've thought about it. The answer is no. I hit send, turned my phone face down on the table, and walked outside. I didn't need to see the reaction. I already knew it. There'd be shock first because Jenna believed deep down that I'd never really pull away, then anger, then the same recycled guilt they always threw at me like a rope assuming I'd grab it. But this time, I didn't. The strange thing was how quiet everything felt after that message. No immediate calls, no buzzing notifications. I thought maybe they'd finally accepted it. Maybe the silence was their answer. Maybe that was it. It wasn't. Later that night, I got a call from Dad. I almost let it ring out, but curiosity got the better of me. He sounded calm. Too calm, like he'd been practicing what to say. "Why don't you come over for dinner? Just talk this out," he said. "Everyone's here. Jenner is ready to apologize." That word apologize landed strange. It didn't belong in her vocabulary. Not sincerely. I asked if this was about the account. "No," he said, "This is about family. Let's not let this thing split us apart." I told him I'd think about it. He said, Okay." I already knew I wasn't going. The next day, Mum sent me a message that started with, "I know you're hurting." The kind of message you send when you're trying to reposition someone else's boundary as a symptom. She said Jenna was under pressure, that being a mother was hard, that sometimes people say things they don't mean, that deep down were still siblings. Then came the pivot. She said Jenna's husband had just gotten a new job offer and they needed the hunter again, just for a little while until they got back on their feet, that it would mean the world to them, that I wouldn't even have to worry about maintenance. They'd handle everything this time. She wrote, "You always felt good helping others. Let yourself feel that again." I stared at that line. That was the core of it. That's what they'd counted on all along. That I'd feel good playing the role they carved out for me. The reliable one. The one who sacrificed without being asked. Who always paid, always forgave, always returned. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled the spare key from my drawer, drove the Honda to a dealership 2 towns over, and sold it. No fanfare, no big moment, just clean paperwork, a decent offer, and a signature that felt more freeing than any therapy session I'd ever been talked into. The guy at the dealership asked why I was selling. I told him it was time. That's all. When I got home, I logged into my bank and confirmed the joint account was fully closed. Nothing pending, no cards still linked, just gone. Then I blocked their numbers one by one. Mom, Dad, Jenna. It felt extreme even as I did it. Like I was hitting some irreversible switch, but it wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't revenge. It was self-respect 20 years late. They had crossed a line they didn't think existed. And now they were on the other side of it. I haven't heard from any of them since. No letters, no surprise visits, nothing. I don't know what they're telling people. Probably that I snapped, that I need help, that I turned my back on the people who loved me most. But I sleep better now. I don't jump when my phone buzzes. I don't check my balance every morning out of habit. I don't carry that low-level exhaustion that comes from always being the backup plan. Jenna has her life, and now I finally have mine back. 2 months passed with silence so deep, I started to think maybe they'd finally let it go. I wasn't naive enough to believe they'd changed, but I thought maybe they'd shifted their attention somewhere else. Jenna always needed a new crisis, and maybe I was no longer useful in that storyline. I started feeling like myself again, not the version they sculpted for their convenience, but the one I'd slowly been rebuilding in the quiet. I was sleeping better, working with more focus. I'd even started dating again, something I hadn't had the mental space for in years. And then out of nowhere, I got a letter in the mail. Not a card, not a typed note, a real letter, handwritten, folded carefully into an envelope with my name scrolled across the front in Jenna's unmistakable handwriting. I almost didn't open it. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, just staring at it. Inside, it started with something unexpected. "I guess you think I'm the villain in all this." No apology, no admission, just that sentence like we were debating a movie and not a years-long pattern of manipulation. She said she wanted to explain things. Said she was in a hard place and didn't know how else to survive. Said she leaned on me because I was the only person who ever came through, and that somewhere along the line she stopped seeing me as a person and more as a solution. She said the lies about the joint account got away from her, that she didn't mean for them to last that long, that by the time I found out, she didn't know how to backpedal without losing face. And then near the end, she wrote this. "I'm not asking for money. I just want to know if we'll ever speak again." I read it twice, then once more a few days later. It wasn't quite manipulative. Not this time. But it also wasn't a true apology. There was no ownership. No sentence that began with, "I was wrong." Just a long letter about how hard her life had become without me propping it up. I didn't write back. Instead, I took a walk, thought about everything that had happened, everything I let happen. And then I wrote a note, just a few lines. I didn't send it, but I keep it in a drawer now. Something to read when I start wondering if I was too harsh. It says, it's not that I hate you. It's that I finally love myself enough to stop letting you drain me. And that's the part none of them ever seem to understand. Loving yourself isn't a betrayal. It isn't abandonment. It's just overdue. I spent years being the reliable one, the fallback, the fixer, the family ATM. And the more I gave, the more invisible I became, not just to them, but to myself. They didn't see me. They saw what I could offer, and when I stopped offering, they acted like I vanished, like I'd stolen something from them instead of reclaiming something that was mine to begin with. I think about the car sometimes, not because I miss it, but because of what it represented. I used to feel guilty about taking it back, about selling it, about making them walk. But now I realize I've been walking alone for years. They just finally noticed. I don't know if Jenna ever told the truth about the account, or if she still spins the story like I abandoned her during some crisis. Maybe she says I'm unstable or bitter or jealous. Maybe she tells people I snapped. Maybe she believes it. But I've stopped trying to correct the narrative because the people who want to believe that version of me aren't the people I need to keep close. I used to think family was a fact, a permanent, unchangeable thing, something you endure, something you owe. Now I think it's a choice. And I choose not to be the one who's always last in line for compassion. I choose not to be the fixer anymore. Not because I stopped caring, but because I started healing. Healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's slow. It's mornings without dread. Afternoons without obligation. Nights without rehearsing what you'll say if they call again. It's deleting a text draft you don't need to send. It's walking past a photo without bracing yourself. It's remembering a hurt without reopening the wound. It's blocking their numbers and not unblocking them. It's driving home and not checking the rearview mirror. It's standing in your own kitchen with your own peace and realizing you're not waiting for the next ask, the next guilt trip, the next favor disguised as a crisis. It's waking up and knowing that silence isn't punishment, it's protection. Some days I still wonder if they'll try again. If they'll find a new angle, a softer script, a new way to pull me back into orbit. But I also know this. I'm not standing where they left me. I moved on. And not in anger, not in spite, but in truth. The truth that loving people doesn't mean enabling them. The truth that setting a boundary isn't cruelty. It's clarity. The truth that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is choose yourself. And I did. I chose Lisa. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel guilty about